Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, August 24th, and I am once again on the road, this time in Corona, California. I know, it sounds funny. I actually had a Corona in Corona during coronavirus, so I thought that was pretty clever. Hey, we have a great week coming up, and by the way, since last time you saw me last Monday's motivation, I was in my hometown with my mom, and I just thought I'd honor her by wearing the dress that she made me. Actually, I think she made it for herself and then it didn't fit and I said, I want it. So thought I'd be a little fancy this morning. So a couple things. First, I want to talk about, what's my theme for the week? So the last 10 days I have been on the road. Today I go home and it has been such a joy to reconnect with friends and family. And, I've been thinking about how this line between personal and professional can change or be blurred, or what can it do to strengthen us? And I've always been a firm believer that leaders should keep some good boundaries with the people that work for them. Let me give you some examples. I'm so thankful that when I started out being a leader, there was no Facebook or Instagram or any kind of social media, because that would have been tough for me, wanting to be friends with people that I had to lead. And it's over my career, I've really, cautioned people that sometimes too close of connections can be harmful to the relationship. Now, what do you mean by that? Well, let's say if I have somebody who works for me and they see everything that goes on in my personal life on Facebook and I see everything that goes on in their personal life on Facebook, now our conversations can be a little more dicey at times. So they know things about me that maybe I would rather keep private. But they also then tend have the opportunity to blur the line between, are you my friend or are you my leader? And this is a tough one. I've actually had two people in my life that worked for me and were people that I was very close with and professionally and personally. And I did know all their business and they did know all my business. And yet those two relationships have turned out to be some of the most phenomenal, both on the friendship as well as the professional side. Why? Because they never took advantage of the situation, ever. And so I think there's a lot to be said for how we keep the boundaries. The reason I've been thinking about this a lot lately, though, is, we see what's happened to us with COVID. And now that we're home and we're in these virtual worlds all the time, we're interacting on video, people then see your surroundings. They want to know what kind of pictures are on the wall. Your kids may be running in and running through, your dogs, your cats. All of a sudden, we have been thrown into the most intimate spaces of each other's lives. And what I'm seeing is that sometimes that's working out really, really well. And it's working out really, really well because now we're also being more honest with some of the things, some of the ways that personal is affecting our professional. We can't help it. When now our lives are completely open, especially visually, you have to have some times when those lines are blurred. So how do we maintain professionalism in that? And how do we continue to build good, solid relationships that allow some of that personal in? So, really, I guess it comes down to a few thoughts for me. Is number one, I think leaders need to be very open in dialogues about, trying to maintain balance, but understanding that we're humans dealing with humans. And having those kind of open conversations that say, tell me what's going on. What are the biggest struggles you're facing working virtually or coming back to work? Maybe you're in an environment where you're actually going back to a physical place to work. Let's talk about what some of those stressors are. Because now we're moving, I hate the word unprecedented. I'm so tired of hearing these unprecedented and challenging times. But they really are. Because never before have parents been struggling with working and teaching their children. I'm fortunate my kids are all gone. But I see this as a real challenge for so many people. So how do we help the people that work for us to maintain that balance? I think it takes a lot of understanding and it takes a lot of dialogue. So first of all, as a leader, just being clear, tell me what you're facing and how can we help you to be successful? So I think that comes to the second thing is from the employee side is also instigating those dialogues in an honest way. So for instance, if I had somebody say to me, Michael, I still want to work, I want to, do a great job for you, but I am struggling because my child is going to be working from home or going to school from home still for the next 4 months. And frankly, I'm having trouble finding balance. How do I help them? How do I do my job? And I really want this to work. I want to know how to be successful. So can we talk about options? And if somebody came to me and had that dialogue, and then I'd say, well, tell me more about it. What are the most challenging times? How can we help? Can we adjust your schedule? Can we adjust how you work and when you work and where you work? Can we work together to make you feel successful as a parent and successful as a professional? And those are the areas that I think now, maybe it doesn't have to be we're best friends working together, but it really does have the greatest opportunity to say we're humans being humans. So my final point is really to think about what's important and how are we successful in work? How, as leaders, are we successful during this time? How are we going to be successful going into the future? We know that even though, we're all hopeful a vaccine's going to solve it all, I think we all know that that's not the case. We're going to feel the repercussions from COVID for a long time, and they are going to impact the way we work and our output. That doesn't mean it has to be negative. It just means that we have to be realistic about it and dialogue about it. On the same point, from an employee standpoint, I challenge people to say, how do I know when I am effective? Can I actually evaluate myself and say, are there times of the day that I'm most effective? Are there times when I'm most negatively affected? How am I putting myself through the multiple things that are coming at me and find success? And so let me give you an example. I was talking to somebody recently, and she said, my kids are going to be home still the next 5 months that we know. And I'm working from home the next 5 months. The worst part is most of the time in my company, people like to have meetings over lunch. And lunch is a chaotic time in my home. The kids have a break, they want to see me, and I feel like I'm being pulled like whenever, tug of war. I can't think of the words. Like I'm the middle of the knot of the rope in tug of war between my work and my school. And I asked her, I said, are these meetings at lunch because that's best for everybody? Or is that standard? Or is this something you can have a dialogue with your boss about? And she said, well, I don't know. She just my boss calls meetings at noon, and I don't want to question her. And I said, here's the opportunity. You don't have to question her, but you can ask questions. You can say, I would really like to just ask a couple questions to make sure that I'm the best available to you. And I'm wondering, is there any flexibility in the meetings that we're often having at noon that perhaps we can have them at 1 or 11 or even 11:30, because they were usually about 30-minute meetings. And she said, gosh, well, what if she gets mad? I said, well, there may be people that get mad, but most likely she's just going to say, oh gosh, I don't know, it just seems to work. Do you have other suggestions? And you can say, I just want to tell you that the most chaotic time in my home right now is 12 to 1, because my kids actually don't have to be in school then, and I like to have us have lunch together. In most cases, your leader is going to say, no problem, let's figure this out. Are there going to be exceptions? Absolutely. But it's about communication, and it's about making sure that we're talking about the right thing. And I think about this because starting this week, 2 of my employees are having final exams. And I just said, do what you need to do. We worked for several weeks up to now, knowing when their exams were, to just be able to say, go do it. Take care of your exams. Get ahead of everything you need to be. And during the week in your exams, I'm not going to bug you at all. And they did everything they needed to do to be prepped for this week. That's planning together. And if they wouldn't have told me, I wouldn't have known, and they would have been stressed unnecessarily. So I'm so thankful that my team is open enough to have these dialogues so we can get ahead of them. So what's coming on for the week? Okay, so today, obviously, Monday Motivation. And releasing today for our podcast is Jackie Cleary. And she's going to give us the top 10, and actually she's giving us 11 tips for having a for being a more empowered leader. Maybe I should learn to read my own notes. We had a great discussion about, really self-awareness and reflection as a leader and what it really takes to truly make choices. Going back in the vault for tomorrow on Tuesday is Harry Kalimnios, and he talks about unleashing your inner superhuman. We talked a couple years ago, and listening to this episode again just reminded me again how much we really can empower ourselves by really trying to tap into what are the great things within us. On Wednesday, we're going to talk to Carol Lampert, and she talks about executive presence. She's a former stage actress, and she works with executives and companies alike, trying to help people understand that your executive presence, how you show up, what kind of story that tells about you, and how you can use tools from the stage to really make sure you're commanding attention. So we talked about, being that person that walks in the room and people go, oh, I want to be near that person. She gives some amazing tips on how to get there. On Thursday, we go back in the vault again with my friend Rocky Romanella. And we have talked, I don't know, maybe 3 interviews over the years. And this time he's talking about job succession planning. How do you make sure that there's a bench of leaders for you? And how do you know who to look for as a leader? How do you know when it's time to tap that person on the shoulder and say, it's time to give you a new opportunity? Every time we talk, I'm always so thrilled with our dialogues. And wrapping up the week on Friday on the podcast is Jesse Schlesinger. He calls himself the laziest salesman in America. And we had a great and really funny dialogue about how he's like, look, I'm just lazy. I want to find the easiest ways to do everything. And he's a chief revenue officer for a company called OnCourse, where they do a lot of automation. And so we talk about his business and company and what they do, but he really is talking about how to make sure you're not working harder, you're just working smarter. As for the Potential Lab this week, we are unleashing Listen, Learn, and Lead. And that is one of my signature programs, and obviously the basis for my very first best-selling book. Tell Me More, How to Ask the Right Questions and Get the Most Out of Your Employees. So that will release in the executive membership of the Potential Lab on Wednesday. And on Thursday, we release our 2nd episode in the Coaching Corner. This one, I interview Adriana, and we talk about a challenge that she faces in her company. She works in customer service. And she came to me and said, look, when people call, they're upset. She works in a fulfillment center for pharmacy benefits. So people are calling like, why can't I get my medication? Or how come my copay went up? So she's always dealing with people who are having negative situations. And she said, it gets overwhelming to me. How do I keep myself feeling sane when sometimes I want to cry and they want to cry? So we had a fabulous coaching session, and I think it's something that you'll really enjoy. Every single person will get something out of it, no matter what you do for a living. So that's our week ahead. It has been another, gorgeous day in California. I'm looking forward to sleeping in my own bed tonight, but it has been a great adventure just to get out of my own little bubble. Breathe in some air in some other places and meet some new friends and family as well. Have a great week, everyone.